Hi, my Be Health Empowered family. Welcome back to another episode of Excuse Me, Doctor. My name is Dr. Melissa Clark. Please call me Dr. Mel. I am delighted to be here with you live each and every Monday to make sure that you have the information that you need to make wise decisions about your health, not just for you, but for your loved ones, your community, your family, everybody, right? So if you're joining us for the first time, please hit that like button if you're checking us out on Facebook, that subscribe button if you're checking us out on YouTube. Again, we are here for you. So also make sure that as we go through the show, you're putting your comments, your thoughts, your questions in the chat. You know that we're going to get to them as we go through the show. And, we're just going to have a great time. We're going to have an amazing week. And we're going to do that with my amazing two co-hosts, Lila Mays and Wayne Bruce. What is going on with y'all today?
Hey, happy Monday.
Hey, happy Monday. Happy Monday after Thanksgiving, more importantly.
Happy Monday after Thanksgiving.
Yes. I hope we all made it through without extra pounds. At least I hope I did.
I think I did. I got on the scale this morning. I'm okay, I think.
Yeah. It was some good eating, but you had to get the exercise in to balance it out.
Indeed. We can't hear you, bruh.
Mr. Wayne Bruce,
on
come
some
on
of our
through.
platforms, we're having a few different things go on. So I'm just trying to make sure the platform is platforming,
And we appreciate you for it. I don't know if everybody knows you're the producer that makes this all happen, all the magic happen. So you co-hosting, you multitasking, we appreciate you for it.
I appreciate y'all for recognizing that it's not just the intern that's doing all the dirty work.
The dirty work is shared.
The dirty work is shared. Dirty work.
We have an amazing show. I hope everybody is tuning in all the way through because we're talking about something that lives in all our bathrooms, on our vanities, definitely in our hair baskets, and that's beauty products.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, though, is some of those products are not as beautiful as we think.
Listen, Dr. Mel, when I first started my locks, I cleaned out from under my sink, and I swear I had enough old products to open a pop-up beauty supply. And half the ingredients I couldn't even pronounce. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it happens. We all have products. Even men, we have all kinds of products, beauty product. Well, not beauty products, but grooming products. We call them grooming products.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. Even my barber said the other day there's some beard balms and have ingredients and stuff we need to look out for. Now, hold up. Not my beard. I've been trying to grow this for about 5 decades. I just stopped drawing it in.
Well, see, Wayne, that's why we're having this conversation, because we love our styles, our braids, our beards, our lotions, our potions, but we also deserve to understand what we're putting on our skin and our scalp and what it might be doing to our health.
And so we are going to hear from a true expert on the topic. Dr. Paula Bourelly is going to be joining us. She is a nationally respected dermatologist who's going to break down what ingredients we actually need to watch out for, what the research really says about the harms that it could do to our skin and even cause cancer, and how we can make safer choices without sacrificing our style and our look. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, nobody want to sacrifice their twist outs. We don't want to give up our styles, Dr. Mel.
We're not trying to give up. I'm not trying to give up this beard I've been trying to grow for 5 decades. I
Well,
wanted a
don't
beard
worry.
ever since I was a child.
Well, you have it, and we are not going to squash anybody's style, including yours. We're here to empower you with information, with beauty to live for, not to get sick over. So we're going to get to that as soon as we do our.
I'm gonna kill the intern said they had music.
Oh, oh no,
Intern,
man.
it's the last month of the year, intern. Get it together.
Get it together, intern.
They did a
Exactly.
fairy dust. They got a fairy dust sound. I don't know if I like the fairy dust sound.
All right, listen. Let's keep it on. Let's keep it moving. It's
All
World
right.
AIDS Day, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a moment for all of us to pause, to remember, and recommit to this fight that has shaped generations.
Yes, and that's why we're all wearing red today, December 1st, in honor of World AIDS Day. And I have to say, this is probably going to date me, but I was in medical school in the 80s in San Francisco, which of course was ground zero
Yeah.
for HIV. We were just understanding what HIV was, how it was transmitted, who was at risk. And it used to be a death sentence, but we have made incredible progress.
Facts. And people really need to hear this. With today's treatments, someone living with HIV who stays on their meds can live a long, healthy life. And when their viral load becomes undetectable, they cannot transmit HIV. And if you can't detect it, you can't spread it to others.
So, and that's incredible progress. But one of the areas
Mhm.
we haven't made progress on is the stigma,
Yeah.
right? Especially in the Black communities. Black community, we make up as Black Americans 13% of the population, but account for nearly 40% of new HIV diagnoses. And it's even higher, it's almost 50% of the diagnoses in women are Black women, and especially in the southern part of the United States. This tells us we need better access, better education, less stigma, more compassion.
Indeed. And a part of compassion is talking about prevention without shame. There's so much shame around it. We get to break those feelings of shame around it. We have tools now, PrEP, a once a day pill or long acting injection that can reduce the risk of getting HIV by up to 99%. That's empowerment. That's the empowerment we talk about on this show.
Yep. And empowerment is also knowing your status. That's normal, it's healthy, it's powerful. So get tested. Testing is the way to do that. You can get free testing from many clinics, and it's confidential, most importantly.
Yeah. I mean, there's really such a weight off your shoulders when you get those test results back and they're negative, right? So I do it every year during my physical, just because
Yes.
I like to see what it is. So today, instead of letting World AIDS Day pass us by, let's use it as a reminder to check in with ourselves, check in with our partners, and check in with our communities, because HIV is not a death sentence. It's a condition people manage and live full lives with. And with prevention, treatment, and education, we can end the HIV epidemic.
Amen. All right.
Amen. All right. Night, night, and bye bye to high blood pressure. This is for me. Dr. Mel, I love this next one because it's simple, free, and doable. A new study shows that keeping a regular bedtime can actually lower your blood pressure, almost like cutting sodium or adding an extra workout. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing because people whose bedtimes only varied by about 7 minutes, that was what it was in the study, they saw their blood pressure, the top number, that systolic blood pressure, drop by about 4 to 5 millimeters of mercury, and the lower number, called the diastolic number, dropped by 3 to 4 millimeters of mercury, with the biggest drops happening at night. And that nighttime blood pressure drop is really key because that's when a lot of heart attacks and strokes happen. And so by lowering your nighttime blood pressure, you can drop your risk of heart attack and stroke by 10%.
Wow. So basically, consistency matters as much as duration. Not just getting sleep, but getting it around the same time every night. I try to get in bed about 9:30, 10 every night. Okay.
That's good. And it works because our bodies run on an internal clock. You might have heard the term circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
And if we keep bouncing around with our bedtime, that rhythm gets thrown
Mhm.
off. It messes up with the natural dip in blood pressure that's supposed to happen while we sleep.
Okay, so we know in our community, high blood pressure shows up earlier and it hits harder. Everyone can do this. No prescription, no equipment, just pick a bedtime and stick with it.
Doable. Very doable.
Doable.
Falling drug prices for seniors. Why do I get this one? I mean, I feel some kind of way right here. I've been waiting on this. I feel some kind of way, and I got the seniors thing, but I love my seniors. In
Right.
fact, I'm
Exactly.
hoping to be one soon.
There you
Uh,
go.
well, not soon, but in the future.
At
Y'all
some
get what I'm
point.
saying. Anyway, look.
At
So
some
check
point.
this out. Folks on Medicare are about to have some major good news. Starting in 2026, seniors could save up to 85% off some of the biggest name prescription drugs that we have today.
And that is huge and it's long overdue. So there have been it's going to come in phases. Of next year is going to be the first wave. Then there's a whole nother wave that hits in 2027. And these aren't like, unusual off the beaten path medications. These are heavy hitters. These are the ones you see in the commercials with people dancing and frolicking in the fields, right? So it's Ozempic and Wegovy, for diabetes and weight management. It's Ibrance for breast cancer. It's Trelegy
Wow.
for COPD and asthma. So these are really, medications that people use for common chronic ailments.
Mhm.
Exactly. Real conditions affecting real families. And look, I know people are wondering how we got here. This all comes from the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, passed under the former administration. President Biden and his crew got together and finally gave Medicare the power to negotiate the drug prices, right? And for decades, Big Pharma said nope, but now we done changed the rules. So shout out to the Inflation Reduction Act and getting these drug prices down.
Right. And this is going to help our communities, especially Black and Brown seniors who often live on fixed incomes, carry a
Mhm.
heavier burden of chronic disease, people who have to decide between buying medications or paying rent, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah,
this is huge.
yeah. Bit by bit, this is making prescription drugs more accessible, more affordable, and more in line with what people actually earn. Finally, seniors are going to get some relief and they'll be dancing around in the commercials, right? It'll be some
Exactly.
new commercial, right?
Exactly. So we're gonna keep an eye on this as these things sort of come online, these fallen drug prices, and keep you all abreast so that you're in the know when it actually hits and actually happens. So thank you, Wayne and Lila. We're gonna get back to you in a minute because we are gonna get into our show and our expert who is here with us. We know that for centuries, Black women in the West have been told that our skin tones and our hair textures are inferior, are unprofessional, are undesirable. And this indoctrination has led many of us to embrace hair and skin treatments that it turns out could really be posing serious risk to our health, often without our knowledge. So today we are diving into this topic. It's at this intersection of beauty and health, hidden chemicals in our hair care products, braiding hair, everyday cosmetics, and what we can do to protect ourselves and our families. And to help us walk through this topic, we have an incredible guest, Dr. Paula Bourelly. She's a dermatologist in Maryland who's had over 30 years of experience diagnosing and treating skin diseases. She's here to share the science, bust the myths, and help us make smarter choices about styles and products that we use. So, thank you for being here, Dr. Bourelly.
Hi, Dr. Mel. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful.
I can't hear you.
Okay, how about now?
I got you now.
All right, I got too excited and grabbed my mic. I was just saying you're a friend of the show, so the Be Health Empowered family already knows you, and we are going to jump right into this. So, just to sort of lay the foundation, how is it that the things that we put on our skin and our hair potentially affect our bodies? Isn't our skin supposed to be a barrier and protect us?
Yeah, absolutely. The skin is a barrier and it protects us from a lot of harmful chemicals in the environment. Helps to maintain our body temperatures so that we don't have great fluctuations despite what the climate is doing. But it also is a living organism, right? It's the biggest organ that we have. And even in the case of very healthy skin, there are certain products that can penetrate. They're actually designed to penetrate some of the creams that we use for medicinal purposes. Um, in the case of someone who has not so healthy skin, by the way, or scalp, because I know we'll talk about hair products as well, that barrier can be compromised. And so absorption can flow just from there. And if it's a wide enough body surface area that you're applying something to, you absolutely can get systemic absorption.
Right. And also, I guess the frequency too of how often you're exposed to it.
That's right.
So, I know that, the Food and Drug Administration regulates medications closely, but not so much with cosmetics. They're really kind of loosely regulated. And so, what does this mean for me as a consumer, our audience as consumers? What should we be aware of, given that there's not like maybe as tight regulation as we think?
Yeah, probably the most shocking thing that I want to share with you is that in the US, the FDA does not require a pre-marketing review of the safety of ingredients that they put in cosmetics. So a lot of stuff can be put out there and you don't really know it's a problem until there's been a recall or some other reports that would sort of heighten your awareness that this is a dangerous substance. In other countries, and in particular, we'll say in Europe, they seem to be much stricter about things. They seem to be much more transparent with their labeling. That's another issue that we face here in the US. Sometimes things are not labeled in a very transparent way. And part of that might be because certain agents have multiple different names. And then also because if the actual percentage of the product that is in an ingredient that's in a product falls below what their mandate is or their recommendation is for labeling, they may not need to label it. So
So it might
those are
still
things
be
that
in there, but at very low levels, and you think you're safe, but it's not
that's
even on
correct.
the label.
That's correct.
Got it.
That's
So let's start with hair care, because I know there are several kinds of products we're going to touch bases on. So with hair care, we have recently heard that frequent and long-term use of hair relaxers have serious health effects. So what is dangerous about hair relaxers, and who is most at risk?
So there are a couple of things to consider. Most relaxers are broken into lye-based and no lye-based products, right? So lye as an agent, it also goes by the name of sodium hydroxide, is an extremely corrosive agent. It in and of itself is not really considered a cancer-producing item, so a carcinogen, but because it can cause breaks in the integrity of the skin and the scalp, it can make available to your body things that are also being used on your scalp in a way in much higher concentrations because it's not protecting you against the absorption, right? In addition to what it does to your skin, which can create chemical burns, it can actually create real ulcers. It can also cause chemical burns in your eyes. And even the inhalation of the fumes of lye can cause respiratory problems. And it's been reported that people can develop asthma and an exacerbation of their asthma if they're being exposed.
I just like everybody who's had a chemical burn from a relaxer to just put a yes in the chat, because I know I have. So
That's right. And even
yes.
the no lye agents, I should say, may have products in them that can be problematic. They're certainly trying to move towards things that are going to be less irritating to the skin, less likely to cause those kind of burns, but that can be a challenge for people who use them very frequently, every 4 to 6 weeks, or if it's being, something like that, you're going to probably have some cumulative damage that occurs. And I don't know if you're going to move into the discussion about what they're now starting to discover about hair relaxers, particularly in Black women, and the increased risk it may have in the development of certain types of cancers, particularly in
Exactly.
endometrial,
Yes,
uterine
that's
cancer,
what I
cancer.
wanted to bring out. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's real. And there's concern that some of those agents and the ingredients that are put in these products can serve as what they call endocrine disruptors. And these products can interfere with your body's own ability to function in terms of, using hormones and so forth that we all need just to live every day. And if some of those agents actually mimic estrogen as a hormone, then it could put a person at increased risk of developing certain hormone sensitive tumors like breast cancers or endometrial cancers. It could put young women at risk of having premature menses, which is, problematic,
Sure.
particularly since sometimes people are getting perms as young as, 6 and 8 years old.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
there's also been some association with, uh, fertility issues if it's really suppressing your own natural hormone.
Wow. And just so everybody knows, endocrine means the system in your body that produces hormones. So if it's an endocrine disruptor, it's messing up that system, and hence all the problems that you just mentioned. Are there other categories of hair care products like leave-ins or edge control, scalp oils, any of those that may contain harmful substances as well?
Well, I think any of them could potentially, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the real red flag products that you know about that people are really aware about. For example, formaldehyde, which is used as preservative. Parabens that are usually used also as preservatives are well-known endocrine disruptors, and the formaldehydes are actually considered to be carcinogens. You can find that in any of these products. They could be in shampoos. They can be in, as you mentioned, leave-in hair products as well as in skincare products. So I don't think that there is one particular product over another that's going to put you at greater risk, but let's just think about how we use these things. When you're using leave-in conditions, usually it's just meant to sort of coat the hair. It's sitting on the surface, take away frizz. It has a lot of either dimethicone or silicone in it so that it looks smooth and it moisturizes you. When you're using something more for edge control, that's by definition going to be on the edges, on the periphery of your hairline. And so you're likely to get more absorption into the skin. And, where this can really be problematic is for other things that are a little less lethal, obviously, than cancer causing, but like pomade acne or creating folliculitis or pore clogging because you're putting too many oils and inclusive things in the scalp.
Got it. So far I've heard you say lye is a problem. I've heard you say parabens. I've heard you say formaldehyde. Are there any other things on labels that we should be sort of looking for in terms of ingredient changes that, ingredients that we should be avoiding
Well,
when we read the label?
Yeah, when you're reading the label, and I have to say it's a little bit unfair to expect for the consumer to do this because when I say formaldehyde, you might not be realizing that there is formaldehyde, and then there are other agents like glycolic acid that's a formaldehyde releaser. So if the product says no formaldehyde, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have something in there that's going to actually expose you to the same harmful effects of formaldehyde. Things like organic and natural and pure, these things don't really have a standard. So when you see that on your label, that's a very difficult one to sort of interpret and know whether or not this is okay. So my suggestion would be familiarize yourself with some of the big things. So we mentioned formaldehyde releasers. There's something called glutaraldehyde that's sometimes used in place of formaldehyde, which is 6 to 8 times more potent and damaging. Phthalates, which are used with a number of agents that have fragrance, are also problematic for people. And if you have those things, or lye, we talked about lye going under the name sodium hydroxide. If you have those things in your mind, then you can know as you're looking for things to look for labels that say, without or no, or, formaldehyde free, even though I just told you that sometimes it's not completely accurate. The other thing you could do is you could look for things that say, dermatology tested. That doesn't mean that it's automatically going to be purely safe, but it does make you feel like, okay, I can either go to the American Academy of Dermatology website, aad.org, and look up products. And one other nonpartisan organization that you and I are both familiar with, nonprofit, is the Environmental Working Group.
Yes.
And I like to think of them as sort of, your boots on the ground for people who are really trying to just know what's out there in the environment that might be problematic, not just in cosmetics, but in environmental, in chemicals that we use to clean and the food we eat. and you can go to their website, and you may not be able to pull up any product. You can look up your product and see if it's been, as they say, EWG verified. And with that, you know that there's another set of scientific eyes looking at the product to make sure that it's safe.
Right. And I think that's probably the easiest thing, rather than, like you said, trying to memorize all the different chemicals and read the labels. You can actually go to their website, put in the name of the product, and figure out, is it safe? Right.
Right.
So just last week, we kind of, in our weekly recap, we talked about synthetic braided hair. So I want to bring that up again for those people that might have missed that episode. A lot of us braid our hair to protect it, right? But it turns out that might be doing more harm than good. So from a dermatologist perspective, what should we be watching out for with synthetic braided hair? What kind of problems might it be causing on our scalp and even our body?
So I think the first thing that we often think about is just the tension that it can put on your hair, and the result that could be inflammation and scarring and what they call traction alopecia, because there's just been too much tension put on the hair at any given time. Some of the braids are very heavy, so that adds tension to it. Some of these products have been treated with, certain, flame retardant materials, which is surprising, but that is true. It's coated with things that can be quite allergenic or allergy producing, and so there are people who have reactions to the actual fiber that's being used for the hair. And you and I are going to reference probably the same article that was actually written in Consumer Reports, but that was based on an article that was written, I think, in 2023 in one of the Lancet journals that talked very specifically about the number of common branded hair fibers that have carcinogens detected in them. And they give a long list, from things like lead to one type of fiber that's referred to as mod acrylic fiber, which is a very popular one, is a combination of two well-known carcinogens, one being vinyl chloride and another one being acrylonitrile. So these are the products that you're wearing in your hair for 4 to 6 weeks at a time, and then maybe you're going to go and get it redone and wear it for longer. So how does that expose you, just in terms of exposure to your skin, and then also what you're inhaling? Because if you are inhaling this product, meaning the fumes of it, if you will, or the coating of it, that can be problematic, certainly for your respiratory system. And if you're touching it and you're eating, I mean, you can actually ingest some of it. It's a big concern for little kids. Yeah.
I wore braids throughout medical school just because it was easy, right? I could focus more on studying.
Right.
So yeah, very common for people to wear braids years at a time, right? So how can you tell the difference between just a simple irritation from braiding and an allergic reaction that might need medical attention?
Well, it's interesting, because you frequently will have people say that when they first get their braids put in, that it burns and it itches, and we might even see clinically these little whiteheads that come up at the edges where you can see the hair has been pulled very tight. That actually causes inflammation, and over long periods of time, this is where the scarring can come in, and this is why people suffer from something called traction alopecia. So that's one thing that maybe will go under the umbrella of just sort of irritation, but it gets better over, the course of, 5 to 7 days, or whenever the braids start to loosen. Something that is truly an allergic reaction might take several days to present, because allergic contact dermatitis are usually products that you get exposed to, and it might take you 1 to 2 days to actually see the reaction, with red, itchy bumps and scaling, a lot of burning, and it will often persist. So rather than getting better, it might actually persist until you either remove the braids or you seek treatment to try and quell that inflammatory response.
So what's a girl to do? I mean, I want to go to the beach. I'm on vacation for a couple weeks. I want to get my hair braided. What do you recommend?
Well, it's tough. And I think I should give this one quick disclaimer, and that is to say that because we say we see carcinogens or cancer-producing ingredients in certain, substances, that does not automatically translate into if you expose yourself, you're going to get cancer. And so I just want to be clear about that. I do think that it's shocking to know that so many concerning products can go into these, so many concerning ingredients can go into products that we use every day, and that it's so loosely regulated. From the labeling to, just identifying what's actually in there and what the potential problems can be, and making sure the consumer is aware. So what can you do? I think what you have to do is you have to sort of mitigate your risk the best you can. When it comes to things like hair dye, because this was also a part of that sister study. The sister study, by the way, started in 2003, and I think it went for about 6 years, 2009. And over the course of that year, they enrolled 50,000 women, all of whom were cancer-free, but all of whom had a sister with breast cancer. And they just monitored these women over a number of years to see who was more likely to get breast cancer based on some of their habits. And that included things like hair dye and chemical relaxers. And what they discovered is that Black women had a 45% increased risk of breast cancer when they used permanent dye. Permanent dye, uses ammonium. So it did not seem to have the same kind of risk associated with you use semi or demi-permanent. But for permanent dye, that was one of the
very
big
important.
risks.
That's a big call out.
In white women, by the way, it was only 7%. So I'll just leave it right there. So what can you do? You can make choices about what you want to expose yourself to. And if you're someone who dyes their hair, maybe you'll go for semi or demi-permanent. If you're someone who's going to relax your hair, you'll certainly look for products that are maybe, considered to be a little bit safer. Although I have to say, anytime you're using products to straighten your hair, there's always going to be a risk of also breaking the hair, because structurally you're making the hair more fragile. But breaking the hair is different than causing a cancer. So again, you're making choices here. And I think, relying on some of the products that I believe are going to be a little bit more reliable at testing. So I tend to go to big houses as opposed to smaller houses. That's not to say that smaller brands cannot do a very good job of vetting their products and making sure they have a safe product. But in this industry, there's so many smaller companies that can just slide products in under the radar, and the FDA is not able to sort of regulate that. And so much direct to consumer sales, right, on social media and the like, where you can buy products and who knows where they come from. They're not even coming from this country. So I would just be really careful about what you put not only in your system, but on top of your skin and your hair.
Well, let's move to skin. That's an excellent segue. So what skin cosmetic ingredients have the clearest links to either cancer or reproductive harm, or we talked about endocrine disruptors that mess with your hormones? Which are the ones that we should be watching out there that we're putting directly on our skin?
So, the good news is that oftentimes they're the same products, right? Because they're used in a variety of different cosmetics, whether it's formaldehyde in shampoo or formaldehyde in a moisturizer. That's going to be a problematic ingredient. The same again is true with the parabens, because they're used as preservatives. And some people might say, well, I'd rather just get something that's preservative free so I don't have to worry about this. But if you have a jar of cream in your house for 30 days, which many of us will have, without a preservative, the risk of growing bacteria in that product is quite high. So you do want to have something that's a preservative in there, but it doesn't need to be the ones that we know are problematic, like the parabens, like the formaldehyde and the formaldehyde releasers. I mentioned glutaraldehyde already. And the phthalates. The phthalates are also problematic because they're fragrance, linked to fragrances, but they're also endocrine disruptors.
Okay. And when you go to read the label, that's PTH.
Correct.
Phthalates. The P is silent. So I want to make sure that we touch on skin lightening, right? Because this is a $2 billion industry in the US. That's not even talking about the folks that use it in Africa and India and the Caribbean, right? And it's heavily driven by women of color. So what a lot of people don't realize is how dangerous some of these products, the skin lightening products, can be, especially, again, because consumer protections are weak. So what are some of the things that we need to know about skin lightening creams and the potential harms from those?
Well, I think the one that most people think about is hydroquinone, because that's been around probably among the longest. And for many years, it was over the counter in some of the brands that we all know that were a brightening and lightening agent. In 2020, they pulled it off the market because there was concerns that it could be carcinogenic. There have been some reports and studies that demonstrate that in mice, it was causing kidney tumors, right?
Oh,
well, after
okay.
pretty extensive research, they were actually never able to verify that this was something that you have to worry about in humans. But it did not make it back to the market because it's just too hard to regulate how much a person will use in over-the-counter products. And so we still use hydroquinone, but only available by a prescription. And what that allows the provider to do is to manage how long a person is using it, what the concentration, what the percentage of hydroquinone is that's being used, and you can ensure that there's some breaks that are going to be taken along the way, because it seems to be the chronic high dose use of hydroquinone that causes problems for people. And one of the problems it causes is something called acquired ochronosis, where you get almost like a reversal reaction. You get a much darker pigment that develops in the skin, and that's really, really hard to get rid of.
Wow. So what are some safer dermatologist approved options for people dealing with concerns of hyperpigmentation or, scarring, like dark patches due to scarring, or melasma is one condition that causes darker patches. What are some options that people can do rather than buying stuff over the counter?
Well, I think what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to seek out treatment from a professional, right? I mean, and now they have all these options online where you can talk to a doctor online and they can package something for you. I'm a little gun shy about that as well, because I don't know how much experience people have with all different skin types, and managing a number of other things that maybe they won't be able to manage just as a remote provider. But in the office, we still use bleaching aids. Like I mentioned, hydroquinone is one. There's another one called kojic acid that we use very safely. Tranexamic acid is a newer kit on the market. We use that topically. We sometimes even use it orally. But the reason I feel confident that these are safer options for people is because they can be managed by a professional, and dosing can be sort of taken into consideration, and also duration of therapy. Those are the topical things. We also have procedures that we use, right? We use laser to lighten things. We use chemical peels to lighten things. Sometimes people will use microdermabrasion in an effort to try and lighten dark spots and work on acne scars. Laser is a big one. So there are procedures certainly that we use with great success in the office. And that would be my recommendation if anybody is serious about trying to address those issues.
Wonderful. Well, I know I got more questions, but I want to make sure that we are getting time with the audience so that they can get their questions in. So Lila, Wayne, come on back through so that we can get a bead on what's going on in the chat. All right.
Hey. Well, I'll jump right in. I personally have a question. Okay.
Right.
So, Dr. Bourelly, and forgive me if you mentioned this at all, but I was writing as you were talking. How important is it to find moisturizers with SPF in them, as a Black woman in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very important. I will tell you that this is another one of those ingredients that sometimes gets a bad rap with, certain watchdog agencies feeling that those products, when they are chemically changed by the sun and wide body absorption, if you're doing full body application, can potentially cause some harm. But I will tell you, as a dermatologist for 25 years or however long it's been, I think it was 30. Did you say 30, Dr. Mel?
I said 30.
Anyway,
I mean,
a long time. What I will say to you is I've never read a convincing argument that said that sunscreens were a problem. I've read many and seen firsthand lots of convincing cases where the sun has been a problem, not just in causing cancer. So if you say, as an African American woman, how important is it for me? It's important for you in terms of protecting you from unwanted hyperpigmentation, from premature wrinkling and aging, making your skin appear dull. Yes, cancer also, although that may be less of your concern than it would be for someone with very, very fair skin who's more likely to burn. And what we recommend is an SPF of 30. You can go higher if you want to, but a 30 is adequate. And in most instances now, we like to recommend mineral-based products. So that's just a matter of reading the label. And unlike cosmetics, the FDA considers sunscreens as drugs. So there is quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know for a time I was able to get sunscreen with my FSA card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Wayne, any questions? I have more.
we have a question from friend of the show, Yvonne. She says, is our skin, Black people, different than Europeans? Is our skin, meaning Black people, different than Europeans?
Well, I mean, the difference in your skin is oftentimes based on, the pigment and your ethnicity. So certainly there are Black people in Europe who will have similar skin to Black people in the US. It's really how your melanin is packaged and the amount of melanin you have, your tolerance to the sun, sometimes your ability to hold on to oil or to not hold on to oil, and dryness and sensitivity. There are all these factors that go into treating certain skin types, and certainly ethnicity and race is a part of it. I would not draw a big distinction between the Black people who are here in Maryland versus the Black people who are in France, but exposure has a lot to do with that also.
If I understand her question correctly, I think she was just saying Europeans, probably meaning Caucasians and people of lighter hue versus people of African descent and darker hue. Is there a difference between their skin? I think you covered it. Yeah,
it is. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
Okay. Doctor, if we are using products if we're avoiding products with preservatives, how long should we be keeping and using products before tossing them? Because like at the top of the show, I said before I locked, I had products that who knows how long those products have been under the sink. And if I went to twist out my hair, I would use them. So I think it's good for us to have a gauge on when we should be purging.
That's a great question. Because I know I've had some under there for a minute.
Right.
So to be clear, I don't want to discourage you from using products with preservatives. I just want to make sure the preservative that's in there is a safe one. And the reason for that is just what you said. If you don't have preservatives in there, then you're much more likely to breed bacteria. You might actually the product might be a little less stable. And so we oftentimes will tell people, whatever the product is, don't put it in the hottest part of your house. And there is frequently an expiration date on it. So many products,
we ignore expiration dates, doctor.
I understand that. I will say that it's a tougher question to ask because different products probably have different levels of stability. But if it's something that you use on a regular basis, you're probably going to use it up before it expires. Now, if you have 10 different, products that you're using for your hair, you probably have, 4 or 5 that you don't need anyway. I'm just going to say it that simply.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
That is fair.
So we have a question. How does from Essence Shepherd or Shepherd Essence, I'm sorry, how does a potential patient vet a dermatologist?
Ooh, good question.
Well, I guess you have to think about what's most important to you with respect to your caregiver. And what I mean by that, I think you want to find someone who's well educated, and you can look that up on their website or look at their resume. I'm biased. I like people who are board certified because I think these certifications don't necessarily make you a better doctor, but they absolutely hold you accountable for maintaining your education. Once you graduate, if you choose never to study again, that's kind of your business, but the board won't allow that. I think sometimes you have to do word of mouth depending on where you are and get a feel for personalities and what people are expert in, because not every dermatologist wants to talk about hair or cosmetics. In fact, there are lots of areas of dermatology that I am far from expert in. and I refer those out. So those would be maybe 3 or 4 of the things I'd be looking for.
Mhm.
And you and you can call the office and find out, what that dermatologist's area of expertise is, if it's the particular concern that you have. And then I, always advocate for any kind of doctor interviewing your doctor, right?
Mhm.
It's sort of like speed dating. So go in with the set of questions that are important to you, just like Dr. Bourelly said, and ask them, you're evaluating them and their response to you. And there are always ways that you can find others, if that one doesn't work out, just as she said. And I would also say too, and I guess as a extension of the question, Dr. Bourelly, as a person of color, with pigmented skin, should we be looking for dermatologists who have, if they're not Black, at least extensive experience working with people with melanated complexions, melanated skin?
So this question comes up quite a bit, and my answer is this. Any dermatologist worth their weight should be able to take care of any skin type. Now that I said that, if you want to cut through the weeds on a lot of things that might require explanation, whether it's hair care or hair practices or cultural things, or just having a comfort with someone who you think might speak your language and understand what your concerns are, then having someone that looks like you, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a doctor, can oftentimes bring about another level of comfort that just makes the experience and the interaction, much more satisfying. I'll say it that way. If you are in a community where you don't have much diversity, and that's always a possibility, then you want to at least find a provider that's serving the other people in the community that look like you. So even if the provider doesn't look like you, if that person is serving your friends and your aunt and cousins and people who know them, then you can feel fairly sure that they have experience taking care of people who have, your kind of skin and maybe particularly your kind of concerns.
Oh, that's a really good gauge. I like that.
Yeah. So we don't have, as Black people, need to see a Black physician or dermatologist, but it helps with, at least from a cultural standpoint. And
yeah. I think 2 of the most important things that people need to think about when they're looking for any kind of provider is, am I going to be seen? Am I going to be heard? Is somebody going to take my concerns seriously? And are they competent to address them? I think that was 4 things, not 2. But my point is that when it comes to interacting with someone, they do not have to be Black. They just have to be empathetic, and they have to be super interested in whatever your issue is. And I won't go further because that can come in any shade, obviously.
Right. So I just want to go back just a half step and follow our last train of thought. And Let Me Charm You said, I have products for my locks from 2021. So Let Me Charm You, might be time to get rid of them products. That's what I'm saying.
It might be time to purge. We charm you.
Purge. Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
So do you have another question?
I do, but go ahead.
I have a question here. You talked about fragrances and things with fragrances, I believe, earlier. And so fragrance is a concern. I want to say this. Men are getting targeted now with fragrance, dupes, right? And these dupes that, because they're cheaper than regular products. Regular products like Creed of Venice is like a $500 to $600 bottle of fragrance, and they have these dupes online. Should we be leery of these dupes, or do even the fragrances for men that you spray on your body come, regulated?
Well, I think they're going to fall into the same category as other cosmetics. Cosmetics by definition are anything you sort of spray on, pour on, smear on your body that is meant for the purpose of beautifying and not for the purpose of changing, function or cellular, composition, right? So a lot of things fall under that category. If you have a very expensive fragrance and then you have a cheap knockoff, I can't say that the cheap knockoff is going to be a problem. I will say that fragrances in general can cause a host of problems for people if they have like a predilection for allergies and eczema. A cheap one, depending on what the composition is, again, you'd worry about how they're introducing fragrance. And we talked about phthalates being one of the harmful things. But if they're not using harmful agents, I don't know that there's a problem there. I will say that for people who have a lot of sensitivities to fragrance, sometimes things will say fragrance free. And that doesn't mean that there's not fragrance in there. That means that they've probably masked the fragrance with an agent that's called a fragrant mask. And so you really want to be sort of pure about it if you're someone who suffers from a lot of allergies.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
That's good to know.
One other male question. Like, you have a question?
No, you got it. You got it.
We have from Robert Ginyard. Good old Robert Ginyard. How important is hydration to skincare? Should we hydrate ourselves with a variety of types of water, such as coconut water, various types of teas, and natural fruit juices?
So as it relates to skin hydration, absolutely drinking water, pure water, is probably going to be your best choice of all a number of things that you mentioned. But when we have people that really suffer from dry skin conditions, we have them apply things to their skin, because it's not just how much you're bringing into your body, it's how much you're losing that becomes a problem. And sometimes people will lose at a higher rate than normal if they have an underlying skin condition that compromises the barrier. For example, when we talk about eczema, that's a big thing you really have to pay attention to. So if you're struggling with dry skin or any of the conditions that come as a result of dry skin, yes, drinking fluids and water in particular is going to be very important. I actually don't have a preference, coconut water or regular water, filtered water. I don't have a preference there, but that brings up a whole nother concern, obviously, about just the purity of the water you're drinking. But what we do emphasize is that you have to be putting something directly on your skin to change the dryness and to help protect the barrier so that you don't lose as much moisture moving forward. And also to avoid certain products, that are, over cleaning you, for example, or exfoliants or toners, the removing oil. Like, these are things that we do to sort of help and beautify our skin that sometimes are a little bit too much, and they create a secondary problem.
That opens up a whole nother ball of wax.
Indeed.
I have to respond to a text that I just got. Someone said, Lila, you keep saying that you had all these products before you locked. Do you not put anything in your hair? I use nothing but juices and berries in my hair. Okay? Just juices and berries. No. And oils and water. Dr. Bourelly, coming to America, people.
Zamunda.
Dr. Bourelly.
Juices and berries. Okay.
Juices and berries. I just want to talk really quickly. We're really running out of time, but about people who may feel pressured to lighten their skin. Dr. MEL talked about, like, we see, if you're in the Caribbean and all these other places, there are billboards everywhere for skin lightening stuff. What is it that you wish more women understood about the risks and the cultural history behind these skin lightening products?
Oh, I think, first of all, that anytime you're trying to change something that is inherent in your nature, you are struggling. You're banging your head up against the wall. And over time, that causes problems. Just like we talked honestly about straightening your hair chronically. Over time, the skin gets fragile, the hair gets fragile. There's a cost to be paid. I think melanin is not only beautiful, but it's protective. And so if you're struggling to try and rid yourself of melanin, you are going to create problems that a fair skinned person would probably face as it relates to sun damage and, skin cancers and things like that. Specifically with some of the lightening agents that we discussed, hydroquinone, the overuse of that can absolutely cause you to develop this condition I called ochronosis, which is a real medical condition. And by the way, when you stop these products, you oftentimes will sort of repigment because that's what your body is made to do, right? So
Wow.
if you want to commit yourself to the next 15 years of trying to change your skin color, not only is it going to be expensive, but it's going to, and honestly, I don't know if you've seen people who've done this for years and years. There's oftentimes, I'm just going to say, kind of a gray, unnatural hue to their skin color.
It looks
Skin,
great.
skin can look perfectly smooth and very
Sammy
clear.
Sosa.
It is not a natural look. So I really wish that people would embrace the beauty that God gave them, that their parents gave them, their genetics gave them. There are absolutely organizations now that are trying to promote even policies that will make it unacceptable in workplaces for people to feel like they have to change the texture of their hair to make it more acceptable. There are a number of activist groups that are really trying to enforce this because it's harmful not only to our health but also to our psyche, and it shouldn't be.
I just have to say that the use of celebrity names are not sanctioned on the Excuse Me Doctor with Dr. Mel show. We just want to throw that out there. And
Baseball Hall of Famers.
And I want
from
to
the
thank
Dominican.
And I want to thank Dr. Paula Bourelly so much for coming back on Excuse Me Doctor, dropping this extensive knowledge with us. This has really been a great show, full of pearls. Lila and Wayne, thank you as always. Be Health Empowered Family, great questions. And, acknowledging World AIDS Day. Have a powerful week. And remember, be wise, be well, and be health empowered. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.